The heat was a living thing, a predator that pressed down from a brassy sky and rose in shimmering waves from the cracked earth. It drank the moisture from Alara's throat and baked the blood on her torn dress into a brittle crust. Thorns had shredded the hem to ribbons, and her bare feet were a geography of pain, mapped with cuts and stone bruises. Each breath was a rasping effort, a testament to a body that had reached its final limit. The world had narrowed to this singular, desperate focus, one more step, just one more. Her flight had become a pilgrimage toward an oblivion she now craved more than water. Behind her lay the ashes of a life she hadn't chosen, and the men who believed she owed them a debt written in violence. Ahead lay only the sun-scorched expanse, a purgatory of saw palmetto and skeletal trees draped in gray, weeping moss. Despair was no longer a sharp pang of grief, but a dull, permanent ache in her soul. It was the low hum beneath the frantic buzz of insects, the weight in her limbs that made each movement a negotiation with collapse. She stumbled, catching herself on the rough bark of a cypress knee. The swampy smell of decay and stagnant water filled her lungs, a scent she had come to associate with the end of things. Her vision swam, the edges blurring into a dark, swirling vortex. This is it, then. This is the place. The thought held no terror, only a profound, hollow weariness. She saw not the grime and the predatory stillness of the landscape, but only a final, unjudging quiet. Her knees buckled, and the unforgiving ground rose up to claim her. As darkness rushed in, a final, defiant image burned in her mind. The cold, righteous fury in her brother-in-law's eyes. A fury she had outrun for weeks, but which had finally, inevitably, caught her. She awoke to the scent of wood smoke and dried herbs. The world returned not in a rush, but in hesitant, fragile pieces. A rough-hewn ceiling of dark timber. The scratch of a wool blanket against her chin. The muted clink of metal on stone from somewhere nearby. Panic, cold and sharp, lanced through her exhaustion. She tried to sit up, but a bolt of fire shot through her leg, and she fell back with a choked gasp, her head spinning. Her ankle was tightly bound in clean linen, a poultice of dark leaves cool against her fevered skin. Her dress had been replaced by a simple, oversized linen shirt that smelled of lye soap and sunshine. Someone had tended to her. The realization brought not comfort, but a fresh wave of terror. A stranger, a man. He moved into her field of vision without a sound, a silhouette against the cabin's single window. He was tall and broad, his features carved by the same sun and hardship that defined the land outside. A dark, untrimmed beard obscured his jaw, and his eyes, when they met hers, were the color of the river at dusk, deep, unreadable, and still. He held a tin cup of water, which he placed on a small crate beside the cot she occupied. He did not speak. He simply looked at her, his gaze steady, assessing. Alara shrank back, pulling the blanket tighter, her heart hammering against her ribs. She saw the knife sheathed at his belt, the raw strength in his hands, the profound isolation of the cabin. She was trapped, her body a prison and this man her keeper. He was another threat in a world made entirely of them. He seemed to understand the fear radiating from her. After a long, silent moment, he gave a curt nod, as if confirming something to himself, and turned away, moving to the stone hearth where a small fire crackled. He stirred a pot, his movements economical and deliberate. He offered no explanation, no comfort, no name. There was only the simmering pot, the clean bandage, and the vast, unnerving silence between them. For days, this was their language. He would leave food and fresh water by the cot, replace the dressing on her ankle, and then retreat to his own side of the room, or disappear outside for hours, returning with game or firewood. Alara watched him, her fear slowly giving way to a grudging curiosity. She watched his hands, calloused and scarred, as they mended a leather strap with surprising dexterity. She watched him bank the fire at night, his face softened by the amber glow. He moved with a quiet competence that was its own kind of statement. He was a man who belonged to this place, as much a part of it as the cypress and the stone. He asked nothing of her. He demanded nothing. and in his stark, unprowling presence, a tiny, unfamiliar seed of trust began to germinate in the barren soil of her fear. Weeks bled into one another, measured by the slow healing of her body and the changing quality of the light through the window. The fierce agony in her ankle subsided to a persistent ache, and she could stand, leaning heavily on the wall. The cabin, once a cage, had become a shelter. Its smallness was no longer threatening, but contained. She learned the rhythms of the man who had saved her. She still did not know his name. Their conversations were sparse, utilitarian things. More water. The fire is low, he spoke in a low, gravelly voice that seemed reluctant to disturb the air. She learned more from what he didn't say. He never asked where she came from, or who she was running from. The questions hung in the space between them, but he did not give them voice, affording her the dignity of her secrets. One afternoon, driven by a need for air that wasn't thick with wood smoke, she limped out of the cabin. The man was nowhere in sight. The world felt vast and overwhelming after the confinement of the room. She followed a faint track that led away from the cabin, her steps tentative. The path wound through a dense thicket of palmettos and emerged into an unexpected sanctuary. It was a small, hidden grotto, almost a perfect circle, walled in by a curtain of lush, green ferns and broad-leafed palms. A spring bubbled from a fissure in a moss-covered rock, feeding a pool of water so clear she could see every smooth stone on its floor. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, dappling the water and the ferns in shifting patterns of gold. It was a place of impossible peace, a secret garden hidden in the heart of the wilderness that had nearly killed her. The beauty of it was a physical blow. It was too much. The quiet, the purity, the gentle sound of the water. It all served to highlight the ugliness she carried inside her. The running, the fear, the constant, grinding effort to simply exist. Here, in this perfect place, the sheer weight of it all came crashing down. Her strength gave out. She sank to her knees on a bed of soft moss, the linen shirt stark white against the deep green. A sob, dry and ragged, tore from her throat. She had run so far, only to find a place so beautiful it made her wish for the final peace. To lie down here and let the world fall away. To let the ferns grow over her and become part of the quiet. The whisper left her lips before she was even aware of the thought. Bury me here. The sound was almost inaudible, lost in the burble of the spring. But he heard it. He had followed her, keeping to the shadows, a silent guardian watching over his charge. He stood just beyond the curtain of green, his intention only to ensure she did not stray too far or fall. He parted the palm fronds, his eyes seeking her out, and he saw her, a small, kneeling figure, her shoulders shaking with a grief so profound it seemed to suck the very air from the grotto. Then he heard the words, faint but clear, "Bury me here." The cowboy parted the palm fronds, and his hands stilled. The rough, capable hands that could skin a buck or set a bone froze against the green leaves. Something shifted in his gaze. He was no longer looking at a survivor he had pulled from the jaws of the swamp. He was looking at a soul so wounded it had mistaken a sanctuary for a grave. In that moment, he understood the depth of her despair, the true nature of the ghosts that chased her, and his silent mission of preservation hardened into a fierce, unspoken vow. He would not let this beautiful, broken thing be buried. He would teach her how to live again. He let the fronds fall back into place, granting her the privacy of her sorrow, and melted back into the trees, his heart a heavy stone in his chest.